Hari Om students, my name is Brijesh Chaturvedi. I am SST teacher here in Chinmay School, Chinmay Vidyalaya. Students, today we are going to discuss here very important point of the Indian history. This is the turning points in Indian history. Firstly, this is very important. What is the history? And this lecture is very beneficial for the class 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So just be curious here to know what is the history and what are the turning points in Indian history. You will be benefited too much here. You will be aware with this. What are the turning point and what happened and how these turning points in Indian history affected to the societal change, religious change, and economical change and political change. So very important topic is here. And I was saying about what is the history. No doubt, without history, you are nothing. If you are aware with your history, it means you will be a very good citizen for your country, for your society. Yes, so history teaches us every time the past faults, errors, and when we will study the history, no doubt we can correct our errors, whatever we have made in the past. So, every and each person of the country should study the history. Now, move towards the point turning points in Indian history. So, just this is the first time period here. Just this is the first time period here, Indus Valley civilization. So, student, uh, the history started here from the human evolution. When when our planet just made a situation of the life, then our first life was started with the human evolution. So I'm leaving that point here because that was the learning period, initial learning period of the Indian history when the people were in the Stone Age and they were not developed. But first time, this is a journey starting from the primate to the Homo sapiens sapiens. This is a journey started from primate to the Homo sapiens sapiens. These are the scientific name of the human being. And when in the Stone Age, the human beings were capable to live their life and they were now feeling safe than earlier life. Now, the first phase came there. This was the Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization. So, no doubt, the Indus Valley civilization is very important, and the time period is here 2800 BCE to 1800 BCE. I know that, and I am hoping that the history student they are aware with the timeline. What is the BCE and what is the CEE? CE. So, Indus Valley civilization. This was the miracle things. This was the revolutionary changes here in India. First time in India, the urbanization came here because the last phase of the Stone Age, that was the Neolithic, and then in the chronology, then Chalcolithic came here, and after the Chalcolithic age, that was the uh, that was the copper and the stone age. The people were using the copper and the stone. That's why it was called as the Chalcolithic age. And after the Chalcolithic age, Then Indus Valley civilization emerged, and this was the first urbanization in India. Students, this is very important when we are discussing here the first urbanization in India as a Harappa Valley civilization or Indus Valley civilization. This is very important data is here. In this time period, in this contemporary period in the world, there are some contemporary civilizations were there, and Harappa was one of the best time period, one of the best civilization here in India. Yes, no doubt, we should proud on this civilization because this was the first civilization when the Indian scenario was changed. This is another matter. We were not aware with this civilization till to 1920 because in 1920 when the Britishers they discovered this civilization, then we were aware with the civilization, and before the 1920 we didn't know how this civilization was. So when the world know India is having this oldest civilization, then they were very surprised that India is not like a Banjara country, not a Sapera country, not only a superstitious country. India is very oriental country. And just I was discussing here, the world topmost four oldest civilizations are here. Harappan civilization, this is known as the Indus Valley civilization, and Greek civilization, Chinese civilization, and Mesopotamian civilization. No doubt, among all the civilizations, our Indian civilization is the best civilization. And when we excavate this civilization, we found many antiquities, many archaeological things. They prove that we were too much developed than other world. Yes, this is the pride movement. And history teaches also when you will study about your history, Indian history, you will feel the proud. You will be patriotic feeling. Yes, now, focus on the Indus Valley civilization. This civilization emerged, no doubt. There is a area of this civilization where this civilization was extended, and because this civilization was urban civilization, so culture, the way of the living life of the people was urban life. This is called as the Sahari life. So first Sahar, first city, first urban cities were developed here in India. We are not just even today in the world, many countries, they are just, they have proud on their cities, we are too much developed. No, we were developed already. Yes, and urban planning and trade, this was the main feature of this Indus Valley civilization. And the discovery of the Indus Valley civilization is a turning point in Indian history because before 1920, as earlier I said, before 1920, the people were not believing that we are not too much old. And when the world was aware with this civilization, the Britishers discovered this civilization. Then they were shocked, they were surprised that India is also the oldest country. Their culture, society, structure of the society, economy, political, like administration and other political bodies were developed, too much developed in India. And now, this was the biggest turning point in the Indian history. But this was declined, and the decline was very mysterious because we didn't just found that how the civilization was declined. There are many ideas, many thought of decline of the civilization, but no doubt this was the turning point in Indian history. Now we are moving towards another segment. You will be surprised when you will study about the Indian history. no doubt. Who is the reader of this Indian history? He will be he or she will be surprised definitely, because the segments are in Indian history totally just miracle, totally just they they feel us what is a transition. Every time you are getting here, when you are studying one segment, one era, you are getting some different points, some particular points. There is no oneness. The transition, the change, everything you will be found here when you will study the Indian history. Now, the Vedic period, this is also a turning point in Indian history. How? How this is a turning point in Indian history? Because one side, the Harappan civilization was emerging there, then they evolved, then they developed, and then they ruled there in India. The time period was 2800 BC to just 1500 BCE. This was the time period of the Indus Valley civilization. No doubt, this civilization was declined in 1500 BCE, and now this was the time period of new civilization came here, and this civilization is the Vedic period. And my dear students, and who are the history lover, they will be benefited here with this lecture, because earlier there was a rumor, there was a misguiding history, misguided history, that was the Aryans were outsider, because we are studying here the Vedic period, and the Vedic period people were Aryans, and we people are Aryans. And Aryans, now it is proven here, the Aryans were not outsider. It is proven by the archaeology and another his different methods of the studies. Now, this Vedic period started from the 1500 BC to 500 BCE, and this was totally changed than the Harappan civilization. And this is very just a sorrow point here, because we cannot read the Harappan script. That's why we are not aware the total history of the Harappan civilization, because we have studied only base of the archaeological resources. And that's why the Vedic period is very important, because this was the first time here we had a vast and plentiful literature that was written in the Sanskrit. Yes, and the Vedic period, this was started here as a turning point in the Indian history, because even today you know about the Vedas, Puranas, and different different of the literatures are here. Sanskrit literatures are here, and in our Indian mythology we are using here as a study point of view. Vedic period is starting from this date to this date, and this Vedic period is also a turning point of the Indian history, because first time we were changed. That was a quite different change with the Harappan civilization. And in the Vedic period, what are the changes are here? First time the Vedas were just wrote here, and many Vedic literatures were wrote here, and this was the now the time period, the first time in Indian history, the northern India. I am just pointing here the geography of the northern India. It means UP, Bihar, Punjab, especially in the Gangetic plain. Now this civilization, the Vedic people were emerged, and they establish different kingdoms. This was also turning point, and this was, I'm just saying, note down it, this is very important point is here. The Vedic period gave us the kingdom in Indian history, no doubt, because the Gangetic plain become different kingdom's place, and ultimately I can say here with the with a determination point that is here most of the Indian history or battles or any event, any happenings happened in the Gangetic plain. So the Gangetic plain become as a battlefield, and this is a very common point because by the geography, no doubt the Gangetic plain was very fertile lands, and that's why the people, the kings, the dynasties wanted here to sit here and wanted to just establish their vast kingdom. No doubt this was also a turning point in Indian history because I sit here what this was the first time here the people sit here in the northern plain, Gangetic plain, and the kingdoms were establishing here, the emerging of the kingdoms. Like in the post-Vedic period, this was a time period, um, uh, 1500 to 1000, and now this time period was there when the Haryak dynasty, Magadh, Mahajanpadas, they were emerged here. This was the change of the administrative point of view. The political change was here, and first time the vast economy was changed here in Indian history. Now we are going to next point because Indian history is too much vast. So we are just moving towards next point. This is the rise of the Buddhism and Jainism. Yes, my students, uh, no doubt, I was just narrating here about the Vedic period, and I said I narrated here the post Vedic period when the kingdoms were emerged, and actually the Brahmanism was overlapping there in the Gangetic plain, and once again the history changed here, history turned here, and two new religions were emerged. They were Buddhism and Jainism. I know that student, many of the students have studied very much about the Buddhism and Jainism, and I know that you are aware with the Mahatma Buddha and Mahavir Swami. They change the life of the people, and this was miracle chain in Indian history, and we are as a cradle point here in India because China and many other countries are following the Buddhism and Jainism, many of the countries here. So we are a cradle of these religions, and not only the Buddhism and Jainism was developing here, they emerged here. Many of the sect was emerged here, students, but the prominent religion were Buddhism and Jainism. This was also a change of the intellectual change. This was an intellectual change in India. First time when Mahatma Buddha came and when he teached to the people by his ideology, and people were very affected. And this was a resistance about the overlapping Brahmanism in India. Yes, student. So this was also a turning point in Indian history, Buddhism and Jainism. Time period is here given here, 500 BC. And this is also called as the intellectual changes and social and religious reforms. Now we are moving towards next segment. Now this was the turning point edge. So just two things were running here in Indian history. What are? No doubt it. First, the kingdoms were emerging, developing, new administration was developing here, and parallel side, the religious reforms were happening there. And you were aware just earlier, the Jainism and the Buddhism. Before Jainism and Buddhism, in the Vedic period, the Sanatan Dharma was there. No doubt, the Sanatan Dharma is very great, but many of the superstitions were installed there, introduced there. This may be just conspiracy, but this was the resistance of the Jainism and Buddhism. And later on, they included in the Indian Sanatan Dharma. Just I would like to clear here one point. In the Indian constitution, there is a word Hindus. what is the definition of the Hindus in Indian history? This is like here, uh, because in Indian history, Indian constitution, Hindus are known as uh, Jainism also, Sikhism also, and Hindu Sanatan Dharmi also. So in Indian constitution, there is not written here like isolating religions like Jain, Sikh, and others. So now, after this change, one dynasty was emerging here, and this was the Mauryan dynasty. And Asoka, Asoka is here because Asok is the great of his deeds. And what are the changes here? First time we were united in India. This was a central kingdom in India by the Mauryan Empire. And there were many rulers, but I would like to talk only about the Asoka. That was the turning point in Indian history, because in the world there is no any ruler who was very strict ruler, and later on when the mind was changed, then he become a very great person because he was adopting the what? Non-violence. In the world history, there is no dislike change here. Now, this was a turning point in Indian history. Now we are moving towards the next segment, and this is the after this dynasty, Gupta's dynasty were emerging here, and this sentence is written here: golden age of the India. Yes, student, the Guptas, they made a concrete central label administration kingdom. They extended too much their empire, and many of the Indian neighboring countries were under the Mughal, just Gupta's empire, and already the Mauryans were started this. So the Guptas were known as the golden time period of the India. Why? Why we just named as the golden period of the any history? There is a reason behind. One thing is more, when the art, architecture, literature, science, logics, everything develop in a region, in a kingdom, in any ruling, that is called the golden period. So just Kalidas and many of other just intellectual persons were living in this dynasty, and the Guptas, they made a concrete kingdom. That's why the outsider invasion was not happening there. So they were uniting to India by literature, science, art, architecture, everything was there. And this, the one very important point is here: the temple construction was started here. First time in India, temple designs were started from this dynasty, and later on, the temple designings were in three types. First are Dravidian culture, and second are Nagar culture, and third are Besar culture. These are the construction of the Indian temples. Now, there was a great impact of the Gupta's empire. Now, moving next segment here, and this is the Islamic invasions and Delhi Sultanate. Yes, now you will feel here like a film. This is the like an intermission in the film movie. Now the scene is going to change here, because when the Guptas decline, there was post Gupta's period, and in the post Gupta's period, there was regional kingdom, and regional kingdoms were weak kingdom because they were not in united positions. That's why the outsider had chance to extended their empire, and this was the first time when a religion came here, that was Islam, and it was in form of the invasion. And the first invasion was here, Arabian attack, Arabian invasion. Then Turkish were came here, and no, you know, the Islamic invasion established ultimately after plundering too much India, Delhi Sultanate, and after Delhi Sultanate, now the view will be changed here. So it is also a turning point in Indian history. This was a time period 1260 to 1526. And in this time period, two things are here. First, Islamic invasions, and second is the cultural fusion. Yes, because Islam was new for the India, and it was also a transition period in India. That's why it was a cultural fusion, no doubt. And this changed the life of the people. The taxation system was changed, religious form was changed, all the things were changed, and people were affected. Now, moving towards next segment, and this was the Mughal time period. And here you're watching here, you're seeing here as a Mughal king, the Sanu Shaukat of the Mughal was very famous in India. And it is said that in medieval era, we were too much rich as a kingdom wise. India was poor at that time, no doubt. We cannot say that India was very rich country during the Mughal period, but the Mughal emperor were very rich kingdom, very rich empire was there in the world. And this was also a changing in the Indian history, because when the Mughals came there, now once again the administration policy was changed here, taxation was changed here, economic segment was changed here, and uh, just I cannot use this word, but there was some little bit tolerance in India in some particular Mughal ruler, but not all the ruler. Yes, this was the time period, and now just I'm shifting here towards the 1700. See, this was the turning point, because this is the no down students 1707. This date is very important, because when the Aurangzeb was dead, when he was died, now this was chance for the Europeans, and now we are going to discuss here the Europeans. And this was the last point of our lecture, British East India Company and British Raj. The time period is given here 1757 CE to 1947 CE. And this is very latest history. I know that who the student who are very just loving to the history, they all are aware. And every time in every our national festivals, we celebrate just our freedom fighters sacrifices. So this was the history when the Aurangzeb died and when Britishers came here. And not only the Britishers came here, you are aware with this, there was Europeans. This was the arrival of the Europeans, and the Britishers established here, because this was the survival of the fittest theory, and they survived here and they established a vast empire here. This time period is here, and the turning point here in the British Raj here. This was the 1857 revolt. But why this 1857 revolt was happened? Because this was the first time period, 1757, when the Battle of the Plassey was happened here, and the British had chance to set up in India permanently, because the Indian rulers lost their territory, and there is a lot of the history. But because I am just narrating here the turning point in Indian history, so this Battle of the Plassey and this Sepoy Mutiny of 1857 was also a turning point. Just image, uh, you can go in the utopian view here. Imagine here, this is the critical thinking that suppose that if we born in the 1857, what happened then? No doubt Britishers will get back in their countries with their bag and baggage, and India may be suffered with the kingdom, or we may be free here. But it is a imagination only. But what was the real truth here? We captured in the colonial rule. But ultimately, because we Indians are very great, no doubt, and we just explored our Indian history very vast in 1922. Just I earlier said to you here, when we aware this our just glory of the history, and we had the courage, and many of the freedom fighters came here, and just they leaded us, and they provided us the freedom, and ultimately just we are free. And this is the turning points in Indian history. I think you will enjoy this lecture, and this is very beneficial for the student. Thank you. Hari Om, students.